So there you are with your video game, and you're having a grand old time progressing through that sucker over the course of days, weeks, months, or maybe even just a few hours. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, it happens. You lose your game save. And it's not coming back. Now, when it comes to this kind of heartache, it comes in a few different flavors. Flavor number 1, the intentionally deleted flavor. Oftentimes, this will happen when you let somebody else borrow the game, or maybe a younger or older sibling is playing your game, and they see your save file, and they think, what's this save file doing here? It's not my save file, what do I care? Delete that sucker. What can make this especially frustrating is when the game offers multiple save slots and they still delete your save file. All they had to do was go one spot over to the side and they would have had their own save file all to themselves. And of course, some of you may be thinking, well, can't this be easily prevented by just telling them or asking them to not delete your save file? Sure, you can try, but that's not always a reliable method. In some cases, these people will just delete your save file anyways. Heck, there's some people who would have been more likely to delete your save file if you had asked them not to. They're like, this means something to you, huh? And then if they're feeling like a jerk, they've got the perfect ammunition to be a jerk with. And then, of course, there's also the times where you yourself are the one who intentionally deletes your game save. Why you do it? Who knows? At the time, you just think, whatever, no big deal. And then later on, you come to regret it and regret it big time. Okay, flavor number 2 of ways that you can lose your game saves. This is the Malfunction flavor, and this one, oh boy, it tastes pretty nasty. The way this happens is that something just goes wrong with your stuff, whether it be a memory card having a malfunction, or most likely, if we're talking about older games, with the game cartridge itself. As a lot of you all know, these game cartridges use what are essentially watch batteries to hold your game save files, and once those batteries die, bye-bye goes your game save file. Of course, the best way to prevent that from happening is to always replace the save batteries in these suckers. It's a lot easier than you may think, or you could find someone else to do it. Either way, make sure you replace the save batteries, and especially if it's a longer game, right before you're about to start playing it, you definitely want to replace the save battery then. Also, I found that those save batteries last longer than people will say. I often hear 10 to 15 years, but from my experience personally, it's been more like 20 to 25 years, if not even longer. But maybe that's just me. Okay, and flavor number 3 when it comes to ways you can lose your game saves is to literally lose whatever your game save was on. The actual physical item, whether it be the memory card itself or the game itself. You lose it, you trade it away, you sell it, who knows what. Also, this is probably a good time for me to bring up the fact that a lot of cartridge games would actually use the password system instead of a save battery to track your progress. The way this worked is the game would spit out a password depending how far you got, and then the next time you played the game, you just put that password in and you're right back where you left off. Now, when you got these passwords, what would you do? You'd write them down. Write them down on what? Write them down on something, and what would you do with that something? You'd lose that something, and that sucks. Quick little story for you, and this one goes back to my grade school. The story is about Christopher and Sarah, but mostly Christopher. So Christopher likes Sarah, and Sarah likes Christopher. Maybe she did, I don't know, it doesn't matter. So anyways, one day Christopher walks up to me and the fellas, and we notice what looks like numbers or something written on his arm. And so jokingly we say, "Hey Christopher, did you get Sarah's phone number or something?" And he says, "No, wait, these are my passwords for Castlevania. I haven't bathed for the last 3 days." So, needless to say, Christopher didn't trust writing down his passwords on paper. Alright, and then what about renting games as a kid? In this situation, you're kind of knowingly rolling the dice, but maybe you don't really have a choice. That's your only way to play the game. So all you can do is cross your fingers that either nobody rents the game again until you're able to rent it one more time, or if somebody does rent the game, they don't delete your save file. Problem is, for certain games, there's only room for a single save file. So if somebody else plays that game, you are screwed by default. I remember one time I got a game back that I had rented before and my save file was gone. And to make it even worse, the person who had rented it started their own separate save file. There was room for 3, but then they just deleted my save file anyway, like they wanted the whole game for themselves. So what did I do? Nah, I'm too nice. I should have deleted their save file, but I didn't. But I sure did think about it. Something else that would happen, and I'm sure it happened to a lot of you, was right when memory cards were first introduced, a lot of people didn't even realize they existed. It was like, what? I need this thing in order to save my game. So what would people do? They just play the game as long as they could without saving, trying not to turn off that console. And I know some people who even left their console on long enough that they were able to go to the store at some point and buy that dang memory card, come back, and then finally be able to save their game. Of course, if you were somebody who didn't realize that memory cards existed, then the first time you played the game, you might have just shut the console off, assuming your progress was saved, and big surprise for you, when you turned it back on, all that progress was gone. The reason why losing your game progress sucks so much is that it's just such a momentum killer. It's like if you were building a sandcastle and then somebody came along and just stomped it into the ground. Your motivation to get back to that point is just totally in the dumper at that point. You don't want to go back and do what you already did. With the game, you don't want to play what you already just played. You want to get to experience whatever the game had to offer next. Of course, in the grand scheme of things, losing your save file in a video game is not a very big deal, but is still something that's very frustrating in the moment and every gamer can relate to. Speaking of which, the question for this video should be pretty obvious. What is a time that you lost one of your game save files, and what was that experience like? I'm looking forward to some very good stories you probably all have. So with that, leave your comment down below, and I will see ya in the next video.
He's the retro bird, yeah, and he's talking about video games. He's